we were told our rate would have gone up 40%. And so this is...
Oh wait, and different plans.
What's that?
And there would have been different plans.
And there would have been different plans. And so basically, I've just read some sporadic things when I've gotten on healthcare.gov. Had a hard time keeping it kicked off. But most of the plans I'm seeing are substantially more expensive in our area. And what we're trying to do is to make this as smooth a transition as possible for everybody, and at least get us into next year, the calendar year, and let Obamacare kind of work its way, hopefully, out altogether. But just remember this next November. So we're going to be picking up the additional 19.9%, and ideally we'd love to give you 20% more of something. Instead, it's just to keep the status quo through November 30th of next year. So if Obamacare goes the way it's going, we are going to get hit with huge dollar increases next year. But the good news is we'll be the, people starting in January all the way through will have faced it first, and I think as long as Washington keeps getting these reports back of what's occurring, you're going to see people step up to the plate and hopefully make some changes to it or get rid of it altogether. But so anyway, that's the real reason behind our change in anniversary day. We weren't just trying to speed things up, we're trying to lock it in so that we can have our coverages, even if it is a 19.9% increase. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. And the good news for you, as he said, the 19.9% increase. I do these meetings. I have 60 clients that I work on, just myself with my team, and then we have more than that for our agency. But a lot of times the conversation that I'm having is we're passing on the increase to you. So it's really nice, and usually I'm standing much closer to that exit door when I say that because everybody's mad at the messenger. So it's nice when I can say, that yes, there is an increase, but that the company is picking it up so that they can still continue to provide at least one plan that from an employee perspective is really free. It's $1 a month, so it's 99.9% free. So that's good news because a lot of employers, like I said, are having to pass that on. And I do want to reiterate, they can say that they do their best to provide you the plan, and I can say that I have 3 clients that offer something of this type of cost from a payroll deduction perspective. So that's good. And yes, they're giving you choices to choose from. You have 2 high deductible health plans, and then you have a traditional copay plan. So with that in mind, with what we're talking about with healthcare reform, there's the penalty that comes in place for the decisions that you're making now for the December 1st effective date. You're making for now through all of next year. This is an open enrollment time for the medical plan only. If you do want to make changes throughout the rest of the year, the only way that you can do that is with a qualifying event, i.e. marriage, divorce, birth of a child, adoption, loss or gain of coverage. For example, you have a spouse maybe working at ABC company, they lose their employer-provided coverage. That's a qualifying event. They can immediately come onto your plan here without any kind of lapse in coverage, okay? But anytime you have any kind of qualifying life status change and you're not sure if it affects your benefits, talk to Jackie. She'll be able to walk you through that. But you have 30 days from the date of the event to make that change. Preferably do it right away, but if you come and say spouse lost coverage at ABC company and it's been 3 or 4 months, she's going to have to tell you you'll have to wait until the next open enrollment. And that's not a Jackie or an iConstructors rule, that's an IRS rule because we pre-tax our premiums, okay? Which is beneficial for you to do because it helps lower your taxable income, okay? So we talked about the plans and they're going to renew December 1st. So let's get into this brochure that you have in front of you. And you do have this sheet here that kind of talks about the old rates to the new rates and that bottom line effect. But I'd like you to refer to this brochure because this is going to give you the plan side by side and gives us a little bit easier way to go through everything. So I'm going to try to make this as informative as possible. Does everybody have this in front of them? Okay. And then really one of the things that I want to make sure that you do walk away with when we leave this meeting is, you know, you're just like you all are schooled in what you do for a living, and I may not understand that. Your doctor went to school to treat you, to know, you know, how to provide care for you, where to direct you, how to diagnose you. They didn't go to school to understand or know what your insurance plan does or doesn't cover. That's your job as a consumer. We are consumers everywhere in our lives except when it comes to our health care. When it comes to our health care, we just kind of robotically walk through and do what the doctor tells us to, and then sometimes it bites us in the rear end on the back side because we didn't pay attention or we didn't make a phone call that it might have taken. I do this for a living. I understand plans, but you better believe that when there are certain things that come up as tests that I'm not sure how or if it will be covered, I pick up the phone and I make a phone call. There's a lot of resources that are online on the Coventry website for you to use as well, cost estimator tools, all of that. So, you know, you don't have to be able to regurgitate everything I say to me today, but I hope that you'll walk out of here grasping it better and if anything else, being a consumer so that if you're not sure, you pick up the phone before you go and have things done and it affects your out-of-pocket, okay?
All of the company iPhones have the Coventry app on Team Prevost, so please utilize that.
Yes, there you go. All right, so let's look at the plans that we have here. I'm going to quiz you. Let's see if you guys will be more smiley at me than the first group was. They were having pizza too. So, all right, so the first plan there, does anybody know, when I say calendar year deductible, what does that mean? It's like in school, everybody's like, don't call on me, don't call on me. All right, I'll help you out. If you'll nod every once in a while, I'll give you the answers as we go. All right, calendar year deductible, that runs just like it sounds, calendar year. So January 1st through December 31st. So even though we're changing our anniversary date to December 1st, we're still in the 2013 calendar year. So whatever you've got going on for your deductible now is going to go all the way through December just like it normally does. And then our deductible will reset on January 1. Okay, make sense? Okay. All right. And then let's see what else. Co-insurance. Does anybody know what that means? And anywhere you see on the brochure that it says CYD, that's what it's referring to there is the calendar year deductible. Co-insurance is that cost share between you and Coventry after you've met your deductible. So they're going to pay 80%, you're paying 20%, right? So you'll see references to that in different areas here. And then you have co-pays, and those will come into play at a later date once you've met your deductible. So HSA 1280% plan, that one there. We have an individual deductible of $5,000. And every service that you do for that first $5,000 is negotiated fees that you will pay. Those have been preset between Coventry and the providers, and you will pay that, and that will go and come off your deductible, that calendar year amount. So if I go in, I'm going to use round numbers because math is not my strong suit. So if I go into an office and I have a provider visit and I have a sinus infection, so I go in for an office visit. Let's just say for math purposes that it's $100. That's the negotiated fee. I'm going to pay that, and that's going to come off my deductible of $5,000. Okay, makes sense? If I have to go get a medication, and let's say the medication is $50, the $50 comes off my deductible. So after the office visit and that medication, I have $150 that I've paid out, and that's dropped off my deductible. Does that make sense? Okay.
Do all of you guys have a health savings account?
Mm-hmm.
Raise hands, maybe?
Okay. Who in here is on the health savings account plans now? One of them. Okay. And of those, do you have health savings accounts? So you've got your high deductible health plan. That's how the plan works, how it pays out, and then you have over here your health savings account, your separate bank account that you use to pay for those medical plan costs.
Yeah, you definitely want to sign up for, it's pretty much a saving mechanism for you. If you don't use it, it rolls over. So you have, as an individual, you can put away $3,250 as of this year, next year goes up. But you can continue, that's your max per year. So you could add $3,000 this year and then also do $3,000 next year. Or you could just do $50 a month or $100 a month, or figure out what your expenses are for a prescription and times it by 12 and just put that away pre-tax. It's pretty much money you can spend on vision, dental, anything that's on the website that is available to pay with this. You definitely want to, especially if you have a high deductible plan, you're not using it fully if you don't have a savings account set up. It's definitely beneficial for that.
Yes, if you're enrolled in one of those two and you're not putting any money, even if it's just a small amount a month, into your health savings account, you really are doing yourself a disservice, because you've got the option of putting it aside, pre-tax deductions out of your paycheck. You know, you can put money in separately. It doesn't have to just come through payroll deductions. There are some people that go, when I get my tax return, I'm going to take some and deposit it into my health savings account and try to see that, fund that account right there. Doing it that way. You're able to do that, all right? But it's a way for you to have a separate bank account. I bank for my personal finances at SunTrust. So this is through Health Equity. So I can have the Health Equity Fund and use that when I go to the doctor versus my SunTrust, where it's affecting where I'm trying to pay my bills from, okay? So again, it's really, even try to, if you've not enrolled in one now before, do that now so that you've got the money there to use when you need it, okay? So under this plan for an individual, we're talking about, we have the deductible, and everything we do up front until we've met that $5,000 will apply towards the deductible negotiated fees. Okay, we're going to talk about being a consumer as you go through the plan when we get down to a couple of the other services. Once I've met the deductible, then the co-insurance kicks in. So it's 80% by Coventry, 20% by me. And that will apply to your hospitalization services, your labs, your major diagnostics, all those other things will have the co-insurance after you've met your deductible. Your office visits and prescriptions will start co-pays once you've met your deductible. So I've met my deductible. Maybe I had a larger claim hit right off the bat. I've met my deductible in June, and then I go in for an office visit because I have a sinus infection. It's a $25 copay. Let's say I go to see a specialist. I'm going to go see an allergist maybe because I'm having issues there. And if it's a specialist, it's going to be a $50 copay. Okay, and then I go get my prescription for my allergy medication, and it falls into tier 1. It's a $10 copay. So those copays for the office visits and prescription kick in after you've met the deductible, 100%. Does anybody in here that's on one of these plans cover dependents, a spouse and or children? All right, so everybody in here is having single coverage. Okay. So some people, one of the questions I get asked is people are like, what's the advantage of that plan? Well, if you are only covering yourself, you're paying $1 a month in premiums to have that plan and to have a medical coverage plan, so that in case you have anything major happen, you get cancer, you know that you have good coverage in place, okay? And then you have the benefit of putting money into your health savings account. So you're not paying any actual premium for a payroll deduction, so you can take take some money, throw it into your health savings account, and then you're paying yourself. That money grows from year to year. So if in 2013, let's just say I put in $2,000 and I only ended up using $500 of it, $1,500 rolls into 2014. I don't lose that money, it's mine. It's my money that belongs to me because I put the money into that savings account. And then I put in another $2,000 for the year 2014. I have $3,500 available at the end of the year if I haven't used it, okay? So it's yours, and it'll roll, and it'll continue to grow for you as you, depending on what expenses that you might have. But then you're putting that money in your pocket, it's yours, you keep it. Does that make sense so far?
And most people only hit about $1,500 a year in their deductible. So I know the $5,000 seems large, but putting money away, like I actually am doing LASIK next year because I built up enough money in my health savings account to pay for it pre-tax. And I just start using the money for whatever I want.
And the benefit to that is on the pre-tax side, there's 7.65% that the employer pays and the employee pays. And so when you put money in your HSA account, your health savings account, automatically you're saving 7.65%. That's before you get into your marginal tax rate. And people around this table are at the 20%, 25%, 35% marginal tax rate. So if you put in $3,000, that 25 plus 7.65, you're almost at 33%. A third of that will end up coming from Barack Obama direct. So when you look at that, that's a way to get something back from your government. So if you put in 3,000, Barack Obama's putting in 1,000 of that. That's money you would not have to pay him, so he could fly on Air Force One. So so you would be able to. So you put in 3, it's really only costing you 2 out of pocket. So that's something to really know. Where you get on the PPO plan, none of that is pre-tax dollars. These all go in pre-tax, and of course you got to have Jackie fund it so that it does go in pre-tax. And one of our guys, I just in the last meeting said, when I go to the doctor and I incurred an expense of $300, I just tell Jackie, hey, I have this doctor's bill for $300. Next payroll period, please put in $300 for me, and that goes into his account, and that $300 bill cost him $200. Barack Obama paid $100. So.
And that's one thing that iConstructors does a little differently than some of our other employers say, this is what you elect now for their administrative purposes, that's what you're going to pay the rest of the year. And they're giving you some flexibility to kind of move that around payroll deduction-wise to either put a little bit extra in there if you need to, or to keep it stable throughout the year. So that's a nice benefit.
And I don't know if some of you who haven't used your HSA before, you do get a debit card, and it works just like any Visa card, and you can use it when you go to the doctor's office to pay your bills. Or you can go online. I became an expert in HSA this year. But you can also go online and reimburse yourself if you've had any costs that you paid out of pocket that are eligible expenses. You can have the HSA pay your bank account to reimburse you your costs.
Right. But you do need to have it. You need to have the health savings account open and be participating in one when you're incurring the expenses.
Yeah, just your normal bank account does not work. That's not a health savings account. It's a regulated account. So.
Yes, definitely. And there's IRS rules that go with how much you can put in, et cetera, and what you can use it for, and those kinds of things. Okay. So the first plan here, we talked about the deductible for an individual is the 5. If anybody here did decide they wanted to put a family on their plan, if you cover yourself and any 1 or more dependents, for the purposes of the deductible, you are considered a family. And under the deductible for the family, it is a $10,000 deductible. And one person could potentially meet that depending on how large the claim was. That one would be pretty large for one person to meet. Or everybody as you do a doctor visit or a prescription, those are all hitting towards that deductible. So it could be one person hitting all of that, or you and spouse and children. But if you do cover 2 or more, however many are on it, are all collectively going towards that family deductible. Okay, you want to make sure, just since you have the opportunity to add them if you want. And then the maximum out of pocket for an individual under this plan is going to be $6,050, and that includes your deductible and your co-insurance and your co-pays that you see. So that includes, it's really truly your maximum out of pocket there, okay, under the health savings accounts. Any questions on how that one works? Nobody will look at me now. All right, so.
Could you explain that?
Huh?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, why is there a deductible amount and a max out of pocket amount? What's the difference between it? Why is there a little bit of a difference?
The deductible amount is including your out-of-pocket. So add that in there. So really, once you meet your deductible for all those first dollars, like going to a primary care specialist, they'll pay for pharmacy, for a negotiated rate, any type of surgery, that will all accumulate to that $5,000. Once you meet a $5,000, if you see the other services, there's a co-insurance share, if it was a surgery, or it would be a co-pay if you went to a primary care.
So that 80/20 doesn't kick in until you hit 5.
Correct. And then that would accumulate to once you meet the $6,050 out of pocket, you're done. Like that's the max you would be out of pocket. So say something catastrophic.
And it's 100% coverage after that.
Correct. Yes. But actually not physically maybe, but Coventry would pick up the rest of the fees.
And is that a yearly thing? I mean, say you got sick and you were in the hospital for 2 years. I mean, is it you pay the $6,050 in
Calendar.
one
That makes
year,
sense.
if you have that, pay that again the next year, so, okay.
The calendar year deductible, back to that, if the plan stayed the same next year, it'd be the same, whatever that plan was in place.
And your maximum out of pocket is in a calendar year as well.
Okay.
Yes.
But you say calendar year, but it's really the term of the policy, isn't it?
No, it's calendar
It is,
year.
so it's December
Yes.
to December.
Right, yes. Because we're on calendar year, so even though we're renewing 12/1,
Yeah.
everything we have in place will roll through the end of 2013.
Okay,
And we reset again January 1st, 2014.
I see. All right.
Now, let's say you have a problem and you got a medical problem that's gonna, and you don't know, but it lasts you 5 years, okay? And your expenses are well above, $6,050. You just have to make sure you keep the same insurance policy and you just pay the $6,550 every year.
It just depends on what carrier's in place and what plan's in place, but it would just, whatever, the transition of care happens, but it would just match whatever policy you have in place at that time. So say this plan stayed in place for 2 years and then a new plan came in place and, well, actually out of pocket it's going to be all the same.
Right.
$6,350.
And so it would be a pre-existing condition for a new policy and they would have to take it.
Well, as of January 1st, pre-X goes away. And if you've got right now, if you have prior credible coverage, it's not an issue for you. Because we've had a group plan in place, and all we're doing is changing our renewal date right now. So if you've been on the plan, pre-X doesn't apply to you at this point. And then January 1st, anybody who comes onto a plan that does have a pre-X, they have to be covered right off the bat with no kind of waiting period.
And let me ask you just corporately, we never really had a pre-existing condition issue. Our employees just automatically are covered, aren't they, or am I wrong?
You
No.
have,
I just had that problem.
Yeah.
yeah, as long as you show.
As long as you're presently being covered by somebody
Right.
else. That's right, okay.
60-day lapse.
Yeah, it's like 62.
Okay.
So if somebody, right now, if somebody went and had a long period of time with no coverage and came onto the plan before January 1, then they could look back 6 months at the record and not cover that condition for 12 months going forward. But as of January 1, that goes away. That's part of Obamacare. So that goes away. So they could not impose any pre-X on anyone after January 1st.
Okay. From a company perspective, when you're then the next year, say we're looking for new insurance, can the insurance company look at?
That's what we use. We ask for bills at it, like implementation when we switch. If we switch carriers, we'll ask for first and last month bill for credible coverage.
To show that is that answering your question? And really it's going to, like, I think you're asking, okay, if I'm looking 3 years down the road, if this same plan is for 2013, then it goes into 2014 and 2015, each year you're going to meet $6,050.
Right.
But
If
is
that's
our
current
experience
rating.
rating, is our experience rating,
That's what I'm asking.
is our experience rating reflected in the premium cost?
For your claims, you mean?
Yeah, in other words, if we have substantial claims in calendar year 2014, so it comes along and now it's renewal time, Obamacare hasn't regulated the rates.
I mean, we're
Regardless
okay to
of the
increase
experience
rates.
of the
We have
group.
people who have,
There's,
some-
well, that gets into a little bit more of the weeds of like underwriting, because your group, the size of group that you are, they don't just, your claims don't play as big of a role. They play a role, but they don't play
But in the over 50
big
group,
role.
they will.
Over
Yes,
50
over
plus for
50,
us,
yes,
yes, it
yes.
does.
Yeah.
But it still does come into play that you don't want people like getting to the 6,050 and just going off and into whatever,
Right,
because while it's not a large chunk, it does still to a degree come into play with you.
like your homeowner's policy, don't dare make a claim.
right.
So,
Okay. And that's not necessarily the case for
Right.
you, but it is factored in.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
no,
go get some insurance.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question a little bit, but for this year, in 2013, until I get to December 31st, my worst case scenario is $6,050 if I just cover myself. As of through 2014, when we set January 1, another $6,050 is there that I've got to meet, and once that's met, that is my worst case scenario, and then the Coventry would pick up the rest if you had major claims, okay?
what's sad is we tried to come up with some plan where we could fund first dollars, and we went around and around, and these people have been very nice working with us. And the government has stepped in,
Won't allow
and they do not want employers funding first dollars in any way, shape, or form. They want them all to come out of your pocket.
it. You ever wonder what
I mean, it is so upsetting, and but they want to make sure you are writing checks for your health care. You know, at least the initial dollar expenses. So it is.
What
It's
the
critical.
motivation? Why would that be part of it?
It's disgusting.
No earthly
So
idea
upsetting.
why they-
Because we wanted to
Here's a
try.
company that wants to do something for an employee.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that.
You would have to spend X dollars, well over $1,000 before we could step in, and just so you, it's terrible. So anyway, these folks don't cause that.
We may need to
Like
move towards the
policy.
exit door. No, but you're asking good questions. I mean, I think some of why we have what we have in place is because there wasn't a lot of information, so people make decisions on the information that they have available to them. That's why we're here educating you, so you make decisions on the whole big picture and what you have available to you, okay? So does that first plan make sense? So we meet the first $5,000 in our deductible, then where our copays will kick in for an office visit and prescriptions after that's been met, and 80/20 co-insurance. All right? So HSA 12, 100% plan. This plan here works pretty much exactly the same way. It just has a different deductible and different max out of pocket that goes with it. So this plan has a little bit more premium associated with it because it's going to give, it represents lower out of pocket costs to you when you use the plan. The deductible here is $3,500. So as a single person, I need the first $3,500. Everything I do, an office visit, my prescriptions, all of that are as a negotiated rate or a contracted rate that Coventry and the providers have all agreed to, that they will only charge all their Coventry members $75 for an office visit. That's what you're getting the benefit of versus they charge retail at $150. Okay, these two plans are working that same way. Once I've met that $3,500, I don't have any co-insurance. I just have the co-pays for my office visits, $25 and $50 under this plan, and then the prescription co-pays there. So that's the same tiered level of 4 tiers. You're going to find that 4th tier where it shows a $250 copay. Those are going to be your high-cost injectables. So obviously, the pricier the medication, the higher it's going to cost for the cost share between you and Coventry. And then your typical tiers, generic, brand name, non-formulary, you're going to fall in those first 3 tiers. Okay. Well, on this plan, as an employee, once I meet $5,000, then I am covered at 100% and I don't pay anything else after that. Okay, make sense? All right, so the Premier plan. The Premier plan is more of your, we say, traditional plan in that your copays are available right off the bat. Your deductible does not apply first. Okay, so if I go in for an office visit, it's a $30 copay. If I see a specialist, it's a $60 copay. If I have a major diagnostic test or a outpatient facility test, it's a $300 copay. Urgent care is $75, and an outpatient surgery and hospitalization would apply to the deductible, and then you would have a copay associated with that of $250 for outpatient or $500 for a hospitalization when you are admitted into the hospital. All right? And here under this one, your labs, there's a $0 copay there, and then the x-ray is a $60 copay.
Do you guys know your 2 in-network labs? There's 2, not just 1, there's 2.
Who are they?
LabCorp and Quest. We're actually one of the rare that have both.
Yes.
Now, for just a physical or a preventative care, is that totally covered?
Yes, that's a great question. Don't jump ahead.
I'm
I'm just teasing. No. I'm just trying to get you guys to
to.
smile because I'm about to tell a joke here or something. But no, your preventive cover is covered on all 3 plans at 100%. No deductible, no copay, no nothing. It's free.
How many of you
Tell us what that is.
How many of you get your oil change in your car? like every 3,000 to 5,000 miles.
Once every 5 years.
So
How
do you
many
really
of you
drive
go
that
for a preventive
small?
checkup? It's free.
It's free.
You get to go.
How many do you allow, you're allowed to do?
You get one.
One.
Yeah, and then obviously there's, you know, the website, the healthcare.gov, I don't know if it's working right now. You can go there and you can see age brands, and there's actually a piece inside this kit too that says like there's a list of like what's covered and what's not.
Is there limitations on any of the lab tests that you have?
If you're on the high flexible plan, you may actually end up having a lab cost from like on request, but the actual visit is covered 100%.
Okay, because I've had run into that. I mean, I just
I
haven't
do
run
too.
every test in the world, and I
Right.
come back and I have to hassle.
And they follow the AMA guidelines for those tests. They follow for the age, frequencies, all of that. So for example, colonoscopy, you don't really need one from a preventive perspective until age 50. And then your doctor says you've hit the magic number, it's time for you to get your first preventive colonoscopy, and that's when they really start checking that everything's okay. Before age 50, there's really, it doesn't follow the guidelines whether somebody says, well, I have a family history of stuff and I'd like to at least just go get checked out. It doesn't fall under preventive because it's before the age of 50.
On that note, how often do they recommend that you get a colonoscopy?
I think it's every 5 to 10 years, I believe, for your normal.
And that's a tricky situation
Yeah,
because the
I've heard
colonoscopy,
3 to
like when you
5.
go for one and they actually find like a polyp or whatever at that time, it's no longer preventive, even though you're there for preventive. That's the only procedure that they can see something right away, and they can mark the diagnostic code when they send it in to us for billing. So it's
then
no
you
longer
ever get
preventive.
your deductible and you end up having to pay for it.
Yes.
So you really,
Sorry.
Warning. You may be subject to deductible. Warning.
Well, then they go in, they fix it right there anyway, they're there. You know, so it's,
So,
so you don't have a choice, you're.
right, right.
So that's really why you want to use the cost locator. Call member services, say, hey, where is the cheapest place for me to go? Here's my zip code. Can you give me an area of like where I can do a colonoscopy for cheaper? I mean, it's just about being a consumer when you're out there.
And doing, you know, like talking to the facility and the provider of how they're going to bill that. There are some that will bill a procedure and they'll bill the biopsy separate. It depends on how the facility does it too.
Do you want references with those fries?
Yeah.
What's the cheapest place?
The cheap.
Well, that's what you gotta get,
Yeah.
that's what you gotta go into, because I think from experience, I mean, I've had two.
Mhm.
And the first one I had, I just went to an office visit and it was nothing, okay? The second one, it was like I was checking into a hospital. And the cost was, you know, went along with it.
Right. And, you know, I can see what your point is. Cheap means, in our world, a lot of times cheap means cheap and junk, right? And that's not always the case. It has to do with the volume in the contract that the provider negotiated with Coventry. And they may do honestly, I want to go to the people that they do colonoscopies all day long. I want to go to the guy who does them on a regular basis, not the one who's like, yeah, I did 2 last year. Yeah, I'll see somebody else. Thank you very much. So, you know, that, and it could be volume means because they have volume, they have a lower negotiated rate because they have more people coming through. So don't also associate lower cost with crap or junk, okay? So, but that's where we want you to do your research because it affects your wallets and, for the ladies, your pocketbooks. Real life example, had some stomach issues a couple of years ago on a high deductible health plan. All of that was coming out of my pocket. At that time, I had a $5,000 maximum out of pocket, $2,500 deductible, 80/20. Had to go in, stomach problems. He said, we think you have appendicitis. We need you to go get a CT scan. I do this for a living. I tell people to be a consumer. I tell people to ask questions, and I didn't because I was freaked out that I thought I was going to have surgery the next day. So I went and had it done, and it cost me like $2,700. Then they said, good news, you don't have appendicitis. Okay, score victory, but we need another CT scan because there's something there, but we can't see it. We need a high definition one. So you're going to have to go get another one. Next time I was smart and I said, all right, I'd like the script. Now I'm going to make some phone calls. Now I'm going to find a different facility. Found one closer to my home, standalone facility that was really diagnostic imaging was what they did, and it cost me $600 the second time. And I made some phone calls. My mother-in-law works in the health insurance field. She's like, that's a great facility. Go there. That's where we send our patients to. So I could have had like 3 for the price of 1 if I'd done my research the first time around. and it cost me out of my pocket to pay for that. So, that's where I say do the research, make some phone calls, call around. Don't just robotically go to where your doctor sends you to, because he's just sending you to the place he sends everybody to, not the one that's he doesn't think about what it costs you out of your pocket.
Plays golf with that guy.
Yeah, he plays golf with that guy. Yes, so, and I mean, here's a continuing that example of what I talked about with being a consumer. When we urge you to go get your preventive care, because number one, you need to take care of yourself, and early detection is a huge key. I know, married my husband and one of our best friends, I don't want to know. That's kind of a guy mentality, it seems like, so I'll stereotype you guys for a minute. Guys are kind of like, well, unless it's like, I can no longer function my arm, now I'm going to go get it checked out, even though it's been hurting for a while. But you need to be going because early detection can make a big difference and could mean, the difference in some cases between life or death, okay? But it also gives you a chance to establish a relationship with a primary care physician and somebody who knows your history, knows your medical history, and can help facilitate and coordinate your care and treat you before you even may have to go to a specialist and pay more out of pocket for it, okay? So my story earlier is my doctor wanted to send me, there was something that he found on my spleen through all these CT scans. And I'm like, okay, he's like, we'd like to send you for this test and that test. And I'm like, at that point, we already knew I didn't have appendicitis. We already knew what the diagnosis was for me, and so I'm like, okay, what are the chances? He's like, it's a lesion. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, it means you have like a little mole on your spleen. Not life or death. We can do other tests that might be blood tests in another year, but at that point, I asked enough questions and got enough information to make the decision that I was not going to have to continue to go for the test. And I got him to say, I'm sending you for this test because he was trying to cover his own butt to make sure that I couldn't come back and say, just what if. So when I got to that point, I'm like, hey, I'm good. I know what this is. I'm fine. So that's why we say establish a relationship, have the dialogue, talk to your doctor, and remember their job is to treat you, not know what your plan is or isn't going to cover. That's your job. And it's as easy as the app on your phone, looking up online, making a phone call to the number on the back of your ID card. Okay. Any other questions? So we get on the two, now let's quiz time. The first two plans, they're deductible first, right? When does the coinsurance kick in? Yes. All right, so when do I have a copay for a prescription on HSA 12 80% or HSA 12 100%? Yes. Good job. I want to make sure you guys know that. Get that in your head. And then if I'm on, yes, you get a free pen. And then if I'm on the Premier plan, when does my deductible, or when does do my copays kick in when?
Immediately.
Do I have to meet my deductible first? No. Good job.
Can you have a health savings account with it?
No. Good job. Everybody here who doesn't have one is going to open a health savings account, right? Yes. Unless you choose Premier. Yes, that's correct. All right, so over on this side over here, it talks a little bit about the health savings account. We touched on this just briefly. For 2013, the limits are there. Those are set by the IRS. We don't set those. iConstructors doesn't set those. And then in 2014, it's going to increase to $3,300 for an individual and for a family. So your family, if you cover yourself and any one or more dependent for that purpose, that's $6,550.
10,000 more if you're over.
And if you're over 55, it's $1,000 more on top of that. Just kind of similar to 401k rules. Now, I had a question come up from the first meeting when I said that about the family, if I cover myself and any one or more dependents. When it comes to your premium, so these are on the back of the brochure. When it comes to your premium, if you cover yourself, you're only going to pay that employee-only premium. If I cover myself and a spouse, I'm going to pay that premium that's listed there across those three plans. And then if I cover myself and a spouse and a child, then I'm going to pay the family amount there. Okay? It doesn't mean that if I cover myself and a spouse, I'm going to pay the family cost. Here on the premium payroll deduction, That has to do with how the deductible is a collective deductible between the two people. It's not a per person deductible. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yeah.
You have a confused look on your face.
There's,
I'm making sure.
And children, so if you have like 6 children,
It's
It's
the
the same, yeah.
there's just one.
So that's, don't have just one.
Yeah.
The
I'll
summary of
figure out where
benefits
they
are
come from.
more detailed, and also the SBCs that the government makes us give everybody are also provided in kids if you'd like one. And, alarm. Also, Jackie would like, if you're not making any changes to your plan, if you're already on the plan, you don't want to make any changes, you don't have to turn anything in, it will just renew you on whatever plan you're currently on. If you do want to add or remove dependents at this time or change plans, you'll need the application that's inside one of these kits by Friday. Really Monday, but just keep Friday in your mind, because if you don't get a sugar by Monday in a business day, you are stuck in whatever you have.
You better bring your candy.
Coffee, donuts.
Chocolate, donuts, chocolate. Did we mention she likes chocolate?
And these kids, I mean, like you said, all the phones, if you have a company phone, has the company train app, so I do highly recommend going to the My Online Services, registering once you get your card. It keeps track of your lab, your RX information, where you're at, your deductible, has resources there, like your cost of care tool. I'm on a high deductible plan. My employer doesn't pay 100%. I actually pay $75 a month for my insurance. Plus, I fund my HSA, so it's like $290 a month that I have to pay. So you guys are very lucky. I will say I work for the carrier. So definitely use the tools we have online. They're very helpful. And then on your card, there's phone numbers. You can always reach out to somebody for assistance too. And then Jackie and I are on there too. If you have any questions afterwards or personal, let us know.
And then Jay, would you like to?
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm sure you would.
I'll keep this part short and sweet. Aflac's been part of your benefits package for a long, long time. We're just going to go over this cheat sheet that you all have there. As we keep mentioning, this is your open enrollment time, so this is your one time a year to make changes or add Aflac or do whatever you need to do. And that's why we're here to explain everything and show you your options. And the best way to explain how Aflac fits into your benefits package, unlike the medical insurance side that's meant to pay the doctors and hospitals and labs, Aflac's job is meant to put tax-free cash money directly into your pocket if something happens to your family member. And we pay you that cash above and beyond all the other benefits that you have, and you do whatever you need to do with it. We don't report it to the IRS, so it's non-taxable income to you. The other two great things about Aflac is that the cost of the premiums on the sheet are deducted from your paycheck pre-tax, so as Robert mentioned earlier, you're going to save roughly 20 to 35% off of the cost by having them taken out of your paycheck before Uncle Sam gets a piece of your paycheck. Then the most awesome thing about all the Aflac plans is that once you purchase one of these programs, you lock in that rate forever. It does not go up as you get older, or even if you leave this company, you can take Aflac with you, continue to pay for it from home, keep these plans, and never see a rate increase. With that in mind, there are 5 programs that we offer. Plan number 1 on the cheat sheet there is short-term disability. It's guaranteed issue, no medical questions asked for underwriting. And basically it's to protect your paycheck. If something happens to you and you can't come to work, Aflac is allowed to replace up to 70% of your gross income. There is a rate spreadsheet on the back of the first page, which basically allows you to look up your gross annual income, come across that line, see how much monthly benefit Aflac would pay you tax-free if you couldn't work, and then you have an option to be covered for 3 months worth of missing work or 6 months worth of missing work. And there is a separate rate category for ages 18 to 49, 50 to 64, or 65 to 74. And then, of course, at whatever age you buy that, you lock in that rate forever and ever. That's plan number 1. Plan number 2 is all about accident or injury 24 hours a day, and it covers you and your family for anything that's injury related, from chipping a tooth eating popcorn to a car accident to falling down the stairs, burns, cuts, all of the above, and basically pays you for everything you're going to go through, regardless of what your copays are. It pays you $120 for your initial visit, $35 for every follow-up or physical therapy, $250 a day for being in the hospital, $650 a day for being in ICU, $2,000 for being admitted, and up to $12,500 lump sum benefit depending on how severely you got injured. It also comes with up to $187,500 worth of accidental life insurance on you and your spouse, and $32,500 on each child. In all of our programs, when we say children, we cover children up to age 26. Plan number 2, there's a rate there for individual, husband and wife, employee and children, or the entire family, all the way up to $19.63 per paycheck. Again, pre-tax deducted to save you some more money. Plan number 3 is a new one this year, Hospital Advantage Preferred. It's a hospital plan like we've always offered in the past. However, this year it became guaranteed issue, just like the short-term disability, which means that you can sign up for it regardless of your medical history. We take everybody, no questions asked. Basically what it does for you, if somebody is confined into the hospital, admitted into the hospital, as soon as you're confined in there, we cut you a check for $1,000. It also has an emergency room visit of $100 per visit, rehab facility $100 per day, pays $25 for physician's visits for any reason, specialist, doctor, cold, flu, whatever. You go to a doctor, we send you $25, and it pays $150 for medical diagnostic and imaging. You can see again rate for employee, employee and children, employee and spouse, and family coverage. Plan number 4 is all about cancer. Unfortunately, we sell a lot of that one also, but it starts out with an initial diagnosis benefit of $4,000 for the initial diagnosis of cancer. Pays $600 per week for receiving any type of chemo or radiation. Pays $200 a day for being hospitalized for the first 30. Then it jumps up to $400 a day with no lifetime maximum. It also pays you benefits for surgery, anesthesia, outpatient facilities, skin cancer benefits, transportation and lodging if you have to travel somewhere out of the city. And there are rates there for employee and employee and spouse, and as you can see, children are covered for free on this plan. There's no extra cost for kids on this one. So it's 2 separate rate categories. But in the state of Florida, we do have 3 additional riders that can be added, and by law I have to explain them to you, so they're on here also. And the initial diagnosis building benefit basically bills $500 per year per person covered, added to that initial diagnosis of $4,000. So for example, if you had this policy for 10 years, you would have built another $5,000 in there, and then if you're diagnosed with cancer, you'd get the $5,000 plus the $4,000, you'd get $9,000 right up front just to kind of get the ball rolling in the right direction, kind of like building a bank account there. The dependent child rider for 46 cents a paycheck adds an additional $10,000 first diagnosis for each child that's covered on the plan on top of the $4,000. So if a child under 26 was diagnosed with cancer, you would get $14,000 right up front. And then the last one, specified disease for 46 cents or 85 cents per paycheck, adds an additional 31 other diseases to the plan so that you're covered for more things than just cancer. And then last but not least, plan number 5 is all about life insurance. And the rates for that are on the second page of your rate sheet. And it just simply goes by male, female, tobacco, non-tobacco, and your current age at which you are purchasing it at. And it starts at $25,000 and goes all the way up to $250,000. And you can buy it on yourself, your spouse, and your children. So it's 5 separate programs that each of you can kind of tailor to fit your own needs or budget. Disability to protect your paycheck. Accident covers the family for getting hurt 24 hours a day. Hospital pays for being in the hospital. Having diagnostic testings, emergency rooms, and doctor's visits. Cancer is all about cancer, and of course life insurance for your beneficiary. If you haven't and forgot what you have, we have a list here. We'll hang out also and answer any questions that you might have. But if you want to sign up or make any changes, we do have to sit down and physically meet with you individually, especially for disability, because we have to talk about your income and how much of that you want to replace. So all we ask is that you fill out this interest form. It is not an application, as it says there on the right-hand side. It's simply an interest form. And then we actually reach out to you and meet with you individually to go over your options and sign you up for whatever you might be interested in, or make changes to what you might be interested in changing. So we ask that you complete this and return it to Jackie by Friday. Friday's kind of the drop dead date on everything. You get it back to her, and then you'll hear back from us, and we'll meet with you sometime next week. Any questions I can answer at this moment? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. These ladies and Jay will be here afterwards if you want to meet with them privately or talk to them about some specific constructive issues that you have. Any questions for me? And then I'm going to turn it back over to Tina to close this up. Any questions for me?
And Ed, Wally, John, if you have any questions, please use the chat function. I'm monitoring.
Otherwise, thank you for attending. Any questions for me? Use your forms. If you're going to make any changes this Friday, if you have any changes at all. Otherwise, you'll just be re-enrolled with what you have.
Like what we have now, is it listed that way on our cards that we currently hold?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just one more thing, he touched on this, for the AFLAC, I wanted to make sure you knew this. If you have dependent, I use the term children loosely, you can cover dependents, not spouse, in this case, but children, to age 26, even if they're married, not living with you, or have dependents of their own, that is under healthcare reform. And then once they are over the age of 26 in Florida, then we have separate criteria that they have to meet, where then they can't be married, can't have dependents of their own, need to be either a full-time student out of state or living with you and dependent on you. So if you're in that situation or you're not sure, you can cover a dependent, let us know. And then my one and only joke is you don't have to tell them they can be covered if you have a 26-year-old. You can say, go be an adult. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to come and see us.
Thank you very much, ladies, and Jay. I apologize for forgetting Kathy's first name. I would call it intellectual pause.
That's a good one. Intellectual pause. That is the politically correct way to say that.
No. There you go.
Oh, that's your.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.